Welcome back. So, today, Mask 2. This is Sakonji Urokodaki from Demon Slayer. And his mask is inarguably simpler in some ways, but a little more complex and offers some interesting challenges later down the line, too. Also, the way that everything is drawn from reference image to reference image, not always consistent. So I have to be judicious in the details that I consider to be final. And for this one, we're using good old-fashioned wed clay, W-E-D. It's made for modeling. I believe it was a formula of clay that was made for the film industry specifically, and it's really nice to work with. But I also didn't have any more monster clay, and I really wanted to work with some good old-fashioned, just, it feels like clay that you played with when you were a kid. But I digress. Having just gone through like an 18-hour sculpture in monster clay, now switching mediums does offer some different challenges. The way that it acts, the way that you have to wait for different stages of it to be more carvable. But this initial stage of putting clay on is a dream. And also fresh out of the bag. Fresh out of the bag, this is the most fun. This is the most fun I've had making a mask since the very first one that I did on this channel, which I made from absolutely nothing. I drew that one up and I made it up out of my brain holes. But what I want right now is sort of like full coverage and get an even thickness on everything. Just so that I have a base. I don't lose where the eye holes are supposed to go, and I don't lose where the nose is. Since the nose is a very, very prominent feature on this particular mask. So the way that tools act with this clay is delightful. I like it way, way more than Monster Clay in that respect. Monster Clay has not an attitude, but it has things that it just does not prefer, and it doesn't prefer a scraping tool. This does, and I love it. So, nose on, and there's no way around this. This looks like a dick from start to finish. But it looks way better at the end than it does sort of right now, because when you put the nostrils on a very long phallic nose, it just makes it worse. This should be blurred out, but I don't have it in the special effects budget. Or do I? I don't know what I did after this. Anyway, getting the nose where it's supposed to be, getting everything symmetrical, all of these are the big challenges with this mask. Any mask, the symmetry pass is the hardest, but that's coming up. Just getting rough details in place and seeing how I like it, and stuff that I want to change and refine, that's what the game is right now. And something that this clay does specifically is it acts much more plastic for a longer time, and it does a lot more with a lot less effort. So for, say, let's call this the wet phase. This is beyond a shadow of a doubt like moving just soft clay around. I have to wait for maybe a day or two before it gets hard enough to be in sort of like the leather phase. The leather phase is what I've heard other sort of like potters call clay, but it's more carvable and it takes a lot more effort, and it's harder to merge more stuff onto it. But that is just something interesting. We are in the wet phase. Sorry about that. My God. So yeah. Just putting details where details go. I feel like I'm doing okay-ish at this point, except that I am super not. But I'm starting to get the base form more and more defined. And something that I'm doing constantly is I'm looking back and forth between reference. Always look at reference. It's good for what it's supposed to do. But one thing that reference will not do for you is see how this mask would fit on your face. And something that I'm constantly doing is I try to do things at the same time with both hands. And I'm constantly feeling for did I put too much clay on the mask on this side? Did I put too much pressure on that side? Are the way that the curves on the head flow relatively even? The answer is almost unequivocally that looks like a penis. No. So you go back over and over again. Sorry for the subliminal message. It's screaming at me. But like sort of constantly feeling and checking your work like that will make it easier to sculpt. And never be afraid to just take a second, step back, look at it for what it is after not having looked at it for, say, 10, 20, 30 minutes. Fresh eyes do an awful lot for recognizing what you need to fix later. So yeah, the top of the mask, I had started adding too much, so I needed to take some of that down. The brows were a really big challenge, but it's too early to be like, this is too hard. It's more of a know that it's going to come back to the very end. Like, it's not going to look right until the last 80%, and then it's just refinement from there. It's the good old 80-20 rule. 80% of your effort goes into 20% of the modeling. Or 20% of the effort goes into 80% of the modeling. I don't know. One of those feels right. But so I put all that on there. And now I start measuring it out again and refining the outside and scraping it all off and doing it again. Oh, wait, hold on. Did I get ahead of myself? I believe I might have. Yes, I can see I've scraped lines in there to tell me where things should go, where features of the mask should go. And then I take it all off. I go back to a bare bones base form, and this was a better place to start from here. So the only thing that doesn't go is the nose. I was happy with the nose almost throughout the entire thing, but I was unhappy with the overall silhouette and the way that the sort of the cheeks and the mask itself rounds over itself. That was a very big challenge, and I started getting the base right and then building details on that. It's not that I forgot that, it's that it's so fun to mess with wet clay that you just put more and more and more on there, and then you get ahead of yourself. So took a step back, undid everything I did, and then built from the nose. Because the nose is the major feature and defines the location of all the other features. So nose, brows, eyebrows, roughly at the same time. And if you ever need to step away and you don't want everything to get leather hard, cover it in a wet paper towel. It's perfectly fine. Interesting. The camera thought it was nicer for it to be darker in this section, and I don't know why. But getting the mustache on, mustache was one thing. The chin mustache is another. And then the constant fight to get them the shape that I want and the sort of symmetry that I want, that was a lot. So I've removed the mustache from both sides this time. I'm also constantly fighting with how big the mouth should be. I don't know why, but for some reason the mouth either should be or shouldn't be as large as it is, and I decided after looking at the reference a bunch that this is roughly where it should be. So I have put the mustache back on again. And you can't see it from one side, but I'm happier with one side than the other. And just bouncing all over the place and sort of getting details. When I get sick and tired of doing something somewhere, go somewhere else. It's easy. It's easy to just consider your life choices and then go somewhere else and do something else until you have to do the thing that you're supposed to do. So, we're not quite there yet. The biggest fight is symmetry, and you can see the mouth is asymmetrical, the mustache is asymmetrical, the size of the mouth is wrong, the brows are the closest, and there's just, this is maybe half of the time that I've spent so far on this was getting to this point. Even the brows are just wrong, including the top of the head. So more stuff has to be added, more refinement. And that's just the name of the game. That's just the name of the game for if I can enunciate today. But overall, this took a significant amount of time. This was not a short build. I believe the last mask was 12 to 16 hours, and I think this one was roughly the same. So the clay choice didn't matter anywhere near as much as how much time did I want to put into it. But before I get ahead of myself, we'll see what it took to get there. So lots of scraping, lots of changing your mind, completely redoing that one eyebrow. I haven't done it yet, but I will do many things that are necessary to make it look better. But you can see that there are some details and refinements going in as I'm doing this. Mouth gone, half of the mustache gone, redrawing like plotting lines, layout lines, just to get things nicer. There's no harm in starting over, and if I had to start over completely, and that's what it took, that's what I would have done. I think there's a certain amount of give you can have. Do you have a lot of practice already? Have you done this 1,000 times? The answer is no. You can make up for that by doing something for a long time. So this probably took me longer than somebody who's made dozens of masks or dozens of sculptures, because they already know some of the pitfalls that they can fall into. I don't. I've made a grand total of 5 masks over the course of 10 years. And to make up for that lack of experience, you're watching in real time me redo things and try out new techniques. So that's sort of how it goes. So I started making templates of like copying one thing to the other side. That little paper or aluminum foil template was seconds of my life that took care of a lot of like eyeballing and fiddling, and it worked out pretty good. So yeah, if you're not good at something, that's fine. You can practice and learn and take your time. And plus, clay is fun. If this wasn't fun, I would not have been doing it, and certainly not for as long as I did. So now we have to work on the eyes. I have everything else in a place that I like it. This has been stressing me out this entire build, because this is where people will look. People look at the eyes of things. That is what we are. We are humans, and we will look at eyes. Especially if they look angry and every feature of the mask points up towards the nose, and the nose is where you're going to stare before you have to look dead ass into the eyes of somebody. That's just a mask. So the eye on the right side, closest to the camera, I like that one. But the eye on the other side is not looking good. So I distract myself in other places. I redo the mouth again. And the lips. It's sort of the lip geometry that was giving me the most trouble. I was never really happy with the lip geometry up until the very last second, and then I just stopped touching it when I was like, this is it. Hell, I'm still not right now. I am with the final one, but in the video, you can see that I distract myself with some smoothing and some overall just... It's coming together, and I don't know at what point it went from being a mass of shapes that I wasn't sure if it was working to the mask is close to done. Like that moment is very hard to define. So I've redone the eye 3 times now. And after redoing the eye for the 3rd time, I cut out a paper template that matched the eye that I liked, and I sort of jammed it around and traced it, and now that's what I'm scraping out here. But because of the dick nose, it's a little hard to film or know that the eye is not in camera. I should probably do some research in the Tengu mask, but the large nose, I believe that the large nose is intentionally supposed to be just a sort of funny penis shape. That's just part of that. You know what? I'm going to do, which is terrible for recording audio? I'm going to look something up. What is the purpose of the large nose on a Tengu mask? The Tengu's long nose seems to have been conceived in the 14th century, likely as a humanization of the original bird's bill. This feature allies them with, Sarutahiko Okami, who was described in the 1720 CE text, the Nihon Shoki, with a similar nose measuring 7 hand spans in length. My God. Okay, so it's not phallic, and it's not supposed to be funny, but it was originally a bird mask, and the bird mask had a beak. That's very interesting. I will stop calling it a dick nose. Oh, I've almost finished that one eye. I let some of this play in either real time or 2 times speed just so that you can see that it takes for fucking ever. But now from here, all I'm doing is refining lines and shapes and seeing how shadows affect other things. Thank you for going off on a Google tangent with me. There's probably also a lot more to that. I just wanted to get surface level. I wanted to know what the point of its length was. Anyway, so all the way up until the very last second, anywhere that I see something that I want to fix, I fix. Shapes of the eyes, shapes of other things. It doesn't need to be perfect. I just want it to look intentional. So the mold will capture absolutely every detail. That is unquestionable. But an errant tool mark here or a like scratches matter a lot less to me than when light is hitting it, what is being emphasized. That is more important to me than anything else. So in between some of these, you don't see it, but I pick up the mask, I look at it, and I see if there's anything that I want to really sort of push. And it's in some of these shots that I'm really, like, this progress, it's all in there, but I don't know at what point I started being much more careful so that I didn't ruin anything because I liked it. It just sort of happened. And that's the sort of magic of doing all this. So now I'm just wetting everything down with a sponge. or using a wet sponge to take away any fingerprints or tool marks that are obvious without destroying any detail. So I'm being very careful and selective of what I'm going over, but I love the way that like a sponge down clay model looks. It's so much nicer, and I like it so much more than I like monster clay. Smoothing monster clay is a nightmare for me, and maybe it's just because I don't know the techniques, but this is my favorite texture for a sculpture that isn't supposed to be shiny or mechanical. Like, this is it. If I could carve this stuff in wood, boy ho howdy would I, but I didn't because I physically cannot. I tried at one point, and I stopped after 2 hours because it was not going to happen. Nobody would enjoy that. Somewhere there's a chunk of wood in my garage, and it looks absolutely terrible. So, very specific tools, very careful scraping, and this is basically done. This is basically a done model, except it's not done until I start pouring silicone. When silicone goes down, that's it. There's no changes. It's over. One of the stressful things about the wet clay, though, is scraping off little tiny bits and pieces. If those tiny bits and pieces stay in one place long enough, they bind to the clay under it with just that little bit of moisture. And that does make it stressful. I believe that the last scrapes from this project are from the nose. I think this is it. I say think because I couldn't tell you if when the camera was off, I didn't just go absolutely ham on every little surface, which does sound like something I would do. So yeah, one final brushy. And that's just about it. And the nose looks so much more nose-like than it did 12 hours ago. Yeah, that was it. We are on to mold making. So I made a little platform to make a sort of a flange around the whole thing. And that gives the silicone a place to go and gives me a some leniency in how this is going to come together. The silicone that I'm using is Platinum Gel 20. Not sponsored by anybody, but it's sold by Brick in the Yard. I love those guys. They do really good work, and I really enjoy the stuff that they have. Silicone these days is pretty expensive, but just to give you a sort of a let's do a bit of a cost analysis. This is expensive. You don't have to mold and cast something. You can make something in a you could paper mache this and get a very, very similar result. I am a little paranoid, and if something happens to one of the casts, I can't just spend another 18 hours and do this again and be happy about it. But I can mold and cast another one. That, I'm perfectly fine with doing that. So there were 2 or 3 print coats of just Platinum Gel 25, and then 2 thickened coats with tin thicks. And that is what you saw there that went on like gross peanut butter. Then the mother mold, just standard art store plaster bandages. I'm being very careful not to make anything that would lock down. This has to be able to come off of the mold without destroying what's underneath it. I want the nose supported, but I can't wrap the nose the way that I would if it was, let's be honest, if I had made the mold a little bit better, I wouldn't have to do this. Good job, Adrian. But it's just, the nose needs enough support that it's not going to warp. And also cost-wise, that's probably $60 worth of silicone, I think. So, yeah. Messing up anything at this point, you want to try to salvage whatever goes wrong, because every mistake becomes more and more expensive, and it compounds on itself, and it's not fun. So, that being said, anything that does go wrong is pretty stressful. It happens. These things always do. I was very lucky on the previous mask for the swordsmith, but if anybody is eagle-eyed in how you make your masters, the bulbous nose is completely trapped. It is creating a vacuum when I try to pull it out. The silicone doesn't have enough give to just slip over it. It's stuck. It's stuck bad. So, now there truly is no going back. Imagine all of your swear words, please. To get everything to be copacetic, this is probably an hour of fighting in, by the way. I tried digging it out. I tried slipping it out. I tried manipulating it. Nothing was working. So I need to let the mold open at the bottom. That's the only option that I had left, because an entire mask has to come out, not just the nose. So I make an incision, the bottom of the nose with a zigzag pattern, just enough to let air in and let the mold get wider as needed. And that's it. That should be enough. Yep. There, that sitting on the table right there is trouble. But we have more or less, minus one cut, an intact mold. And when you cast into it, you have to be careful. You have to blue tape or rubber band the nose closed so that it doesn't leak resin into the mother mold and destroy your mother mold. But everything seats nice. It sits together. A little bit more cleanup. It's nice to have clean edges. I did learn that from Brick in the Yard too. Also, if you don't know how to do something, there are so many things on YouTube, and there are a lot of helpful people. If you ask questions, I will answer them. If the questions are also related to the project, I'll still answer those too. But yeah, so we are going to cast this in, I believe, yeah, this is Easy Flow 60. It's just 2-part resin. It's also Brick in the Yard, but Smooth On has really good resin options. There are more and more resin options out there, but I stick with them unless I'm trying something new. I stick with them when I want, when I don't want it to be a question if I like how it turns out. Brick in the Yard or Smooth On both provide very consistent results. So this is just a boring slosh cast that I do mostly off camera because I was freaking out and didn't set up the shot correctly. But you can see my poor broken man in the back. And then behind him you can see just the forehead of the swordsmith. But yeah, just rolling it around, not at the speed of sound, just very, very carefully. Let it sit, let it cure. Watch me stare at it and breathe, apparently. But you know when this stuff cures when it gets a little lighter. When you put any, not dyes, yeah, when you put any dyes in there or colorant in there, it makes it a little harder to tell if it's fully kicked. But this next coat, I don't know why I did it like this, but this next coat is Easy Flow 120, which is supposed to be better for slosh casting from the get-go. Still 1-to-1 mix by volume, I believe? I don't know. Follow all the instructions on your resin and silicone products. Don't wing it. Winging it means that you are going to destroy everything. That is unequivocally true. Don't do that. But yeah, so things get mixed, things get poured, and things get sloshed. You sloshed around. That nose is 100% solid. There's no angle in the world That would stop you from having a fully solid nose, so the mask does end up having more weight to it than others. Even the swordsmith with the long bird nose face, or sorry, like the bird mouth, nowhere near as heavy as the nose on here. And for comfort, potentially I could have drilled out like the nose, but that also leads into what other things can go wrong with a hollow nose. I was just like, nah. But thankfully, all this worked out, and I think it was 3 full coats of resin got me what I wanted. And I don't know if this is suggested, but I did wait for it to get warmer in the hand while I was mixing it than I would with anything else. If you wait long enough and you start to feel like heat forming, you're usually too late to pour for a different kind of mold. But when you wait just long enough for it to start kicking and then you pour it and you slosh it around, it goes just a little bit quicker. So, ill-advised, probably, but none of that means anything compared to the stress of demolding your first thingy. Already panicking. Remember, do panic and panic often. Wait, hold on. Wait, are you coming at it from the wrong side? Oh, see, I see that now, and I hadn't seen it before, but I definitely deformed the mother mold taking it out the first time, so that's fun. Little blue tape, a little seepage. If it was any more than that, it probably could have locked itself to the inside of the mother mold and meant that this would be the only casting of this mask. I got lucky. So the demold is a little stressful because the cut that I made doesn't seem to be enough. It's requiring too much force, and ripping the silicone as opposed to cutting it intentionally is bad. It's already hard to rip silicone as it is, but if it happens, it's not good. One of the things that I really like about Platinum Silicone is that it holds its shape after being stretched pretty well. All molds have a lifespan. It wouldn't last forever like that, but just giving the cut a little bit more agency to open was what I chose to do instead of using more force. More force is not good. Don't do it. There's also a chance that I would have to start over and remake after the plaster, like $80 mold. But I didn't. We have success. And it looks, it picks up light just like clay. It looks exactly like I made it. And that silly bulbous nose looks pretty freaking good. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the whole thing. And while it's still not finished, the mold is done. I'm very happy about that. Picking it up and moving it around and seeing how the light just sort of like moves and not having to pick up a 10-pound block of plaster and clay. I'm pretty pleased. And it got a pretty good reception at Animazement, so I was really happy with that. My friend had a good time in it, and we went as a duo, and it was I'm not used to having that kind of attention on me, but it was fun. Without the mask, nobody cared who we were till we put on the mask. That's the rule. And that's how it should be. That's perfectly fine. A little bit of trimming while the resin is still green. A little green. And that just means that it's a little softer. Over the course of a day, it'll harden. It'll keep hardening, but it was good enough to demold. And there's the two masks side by side. They look like they fit in the same universe. I like the texture of the regular clay a lot better. but I also love the mask that I made for my swordsmith too. So it's really just two different things. You did a good job. You did a good job. And you'll do a better job the next time you do it too. So I cast an extra one. Always good to have extras. And why not cast a $10 like backup at this point? I did it in pink because I thought that it would be redder. But most resins turn white. And no, it stayed very pink. I do not paint these masks. I don't paint the Tengu mask in this, but I assure you that it looks very good, bright red, and I might cast another and paint that sometime, but honestly, anybody suffering through watching me paint something for too long, I don't know. Let me know if you're interested in showing just a painting process on the Tengu. The swordsmith already has paint, and just... yeah, that's just about all she wrote. The details of the masks worked out nicely. The ability to absolutely scare the ever-living shit out of people in a car parking lot was... it was not intentional, but two people in full cosplay coming up to a car of people who are just trying to... not go anywhere while they're a little too inebriated. We scared the ever-loving hell out of them, and that was not the intention, so they worked, but ill-advised to wear cosplay masks outside of the convention grounds. Ta-da! So, what do? We don't throw the clay away. The clay is just dry, but we kind of need that, we need that head mold under it. This can't survive. So we break it. We spend 12, 18 hours on something, and then it goes away. The other mask will have to be melted down too, because I don't think I'm going to remake that. But this is done. It was done the moment the nose broke off. I almost destroyed that little tool there, but yeah, just hit the thing with a hammer, man. Come on. Thank you. So, yeah. Overall, happy with the process, happy with the ending. Thank you very, very much for watching. And if there's anything that I can say, is do something that you want, that you enjoy. It's a good time. And if there's anything that says what I'm trying to say louder, is that everything breaks sometimes. Put it back together, do something new, have fun. Thank you for watching, and I will make more stuff later. What it is, I don't know, but it might be stop motion related, stop motion animation related, Gundam related, maybe more sculptures, maybe back to knives, maybe rings, who knows. There's so many things that I can do. It's about the things that I want to do. And that's it. Like, subscribe, share this shit. Ah, crap.